Hello and welcome back to this episode of Five Alarm Task Force. If you're listening on the audio, if you're watching us on our video on our YouTube channel, welcome, and we're happy to have you. Today, my guest is actually a friend that I've never met, and that's one of the great things about this podcast is I've met a lot of people through the podcast. Most of them we haven't met in person, and yet we've become friends with our correspondence and everything like that before the podcast and subsequently to it. So today, this is a friend. He's been on the show, on the audio show, a couple of times. It's Fire Commissioner Jared Renshaw from the Western Berks Fire Department. Jared has over 20 years of experience in the fire service. He is the fire commissioner for Western Berks Fire Department. He started his fire service career with the Fairview Volunteer Fire Department in South Fayette Township, Pennsylvania. He has since served with career departments in South Carolina, California, and since 2015 has been serving as the fire commissioner with the Western Berks Fire Department. It is a regionalized combination department that serves over 20,000 residents spanning 4 separate municipalities in Pennsylvania. Jared has numerous certifications to include a bachelor's degree in fire service administration and is also designated as a fire chief officer, CFO, through the Center for Public Safety Excellence. He also serves as a peer reviewer for the CPSE and as a member of the board of directors for the Pennsylvania Fire and Emergency Services Institute. Jared, it's a pleasure to finally get you on the podcast and on the webcast. Welcome aboard.
Thanks for having me, Steve. I know our schedules weren't meshing, but I'm glad that they finally did, and I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, it only took us about a year and a half, but you're finally here.
Give or take.
Exactly. But it's great to have you. And, as we've gotten to know each other and I've learned more about you and what you do with Western Berks, I've been more and more impressed is the best word. The size of the department, the number of people you deal with, the coverage area, and some of the unique challenges you face in Western Berks. I was in suburban Syracuse in Onondaga County, where you have this big metropolitan city of Syracuse in the middle, and then everything else is county and it's volunteer or combo. I was with a small combo department just outside the city, and loved it up there. I mean, we bought our first home when we lived in Syracuse in DeWitt, and as cold as it was, and some nights, can go like with wind chill like 35 below. I still love that area. It was just gorgeous area. And my wife was from Albany, and I was from Greater Boston, so it was ideal for us to be there near family at the time. And yet, I never expected, since I had never been there, to have such a beautiful area. And I'm sure you have the same thing there at Western Berks.
Yeah, especially this time of year,
right.
Fall, all the leaves are starting to change. Surprisingly, we actually have kind of a warm streak going right now with our temperatures. Typically, this time of year, it's going to be getting down in the 40s, 30s, and it's 65 degrees out today. So I'm enjoying this. I hope it lasts a lot longer than we think it will.
Sure, absolutely. So, folks, we were planning, this podcast was supposed to be about the commissioner's recent article in FIREHOUSE Magazine called When City Hall Calls. And we will get to that, I promise. However, breaking news came this past week from an incident that you folks took care of in September. And, my good friend is Andy Starnes. He's one of our members of the board. Andy is a tick specialist, especially in fire. But you also took a tool from my good friend Charlie Werner, who's the executive director of the airborne drone responders. And you guys made a real great rescue using the drone and the tick camera that was attached to it. So please tell our listeners and viewers exactly what went on with that.
Yeah, so this, I'm going to start it out with first. This wasn't my idea. The drone was, the purchase of a drone, the acquisition of a drone was not my idea at all. That was from one of our captains, a guy named Alex Lepko. And, he just started to, Alex is real big on technology. And, here at Western Berks, we kind of pride ourselves on always wanting to be, ahead of the game, using whatever technology we can to better the service that we provide.
Sure.
So he really started to look at the drone and started to sell me on the whole concepts of having it. So when you look at our coverage area, we're outside, we're west of the city of Reading, mostly residential, but now it's starting to develop a lot more into, a lot of commercial, the great urban sprawl. We have tons of homes that are going up regularly, tons of buildings, tons of commercial stuff, tons of residential stuff. But we still have a large portion of our coverage area that is agricultural, a lot of farmland. We have a state forest. We have a Blue Marsh Recreation Area, Blue Marsh Lake, which is run by the Army Corps of Engineers. So we have a, out of our 31.5 square miles, a lot of that is just rugged land, rugged terrain. If anybody knows anything about Pennsylvania, hunting season for deer is huge up here. We have tons of people that are going out.
Sure.
So, that was kind of one of the things that we'll encounter a few times a year where, we have a lost hunter, a lost hiker, somebody's hurt on one of the trails in the recreation area. And, you're sending a lot of ground resources out, and it takes a lot of time even to identify or locate where there possibly are before we can get ground resources in to get them out.
Sure.
So Alex really started to make this push, and he finally sold me on it. And so he came up with a couple different ideas and what different drones to look at. And, we found one from a company called Airworks. That's a public safety drone. Airworks is a public safety company. Everybody that works for them is, police, fire, EMS, or has the background in it. So they understand what the responders need within that, with having that technology. We were able to actually acquire a state grant to purchase the drone. So the drone was 100% funded by the annual Pennsylvania Office of State Fire Commissioner grant. So the drone shows up. We have a camera that comes with it, just a regular zoom camera that comes equipped. And, as Steve had said in the bio, we cover 4 separate municipalities in our coverage areas. So we were taking the drone to all the municipal meetings, the township meetings, the borough meetings. We wanted to show it off, show the capabilities, show what we're doing in the fire department. And at one of the meetings, we had somebody come up to us that said, what else do you guys need for that drone? We're like, well, it'd be really neat to have a thermal camera. It's pretty pricey. We're probably going to try to do a grant again to acquire it. And this gentleman from a company called Craft Code Services said, you know what, we'd like to fund that. So Craft Code Services and Craft Engineering within a week said, come by and pick up your checks. So they came by, I went by, picked them up, and we bought the thermal camera to use with the drone. So not only has the thermal capabilities, but it also had just regular camera zoom equipped on it as well.
Right.
So the thermal camera, we put it on, and next thing you know, within about a week's time, we were called to assist with a search in a neighboring municipality for a gentleman in his mid to late 70s, dementia patient, had gone missing from his care home. So they had already had, a search and rescue team that came in that has dogs, and they have ATVs. Another one was coming in that even has horses for, rescuers and searchers to go out on horseback. We brought the drone in, and in about 25 minutes of flying, we located the individual. Now, we had probably flown over him once or twice, but he was sitting in the middle of a cornfield. Well, this is September in Pennsylvania, so the corn is pretty high. It's like 10 feet, 8
Sure.
feet, I don't know. And flew over him with the regular camera. Then they switched over to the thermal, and they found him sitting right there. They literally, you could pick up, the entire, he was sitting down, spotted him. The drone hovered right over top. They notified incident command, hey, this is where he's located. And they were able to direct ground resources in to go get him. So something that maybe could have taken hours with people on the ground only took about 20, 25 minutes.
That's amazing. And I think that's, for our listeners, if your department is in thinking of a drone, this is probably one of the best stories you can use to say, to show the value of that piece of equipment. Not every piece of equipment has to have a cue and red lights on it. That can help us. Not every piece of equipment has to be the latest hydraulic power. You can take something as relatively simple as a drone with either the standard camera or the flare camera, and you'll be amazed at what you might be able to do for your department. And as the commissioner said, there are grants available. The safer grants are still out there and open, so you can fill out a grant. And if you don't know how to fill out a grant, there are people who can help you fill out grants for the fire service. You can just find them online through your social media platforms. They'll be out there, believe me. And then you just have to, find your way through the chaff and get to the seed. But it's an amazing tool today. And this was, your search was still during daylight, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Right.
Correct.
So
But even,
imagine if this had been nightfall already, the ground forces would still be looking, the dogs would be out there, the people on horseback would be out there, but it's a much, much more difficult job to do it from the ground in cornfields and that kind of area than using the drone, because with that tick, the heat of his body will show up just like that, just like a lantern in that dark. And so we hope that this story, with its happy ending, thank goodness, can be an impetus. If you're listening and your department's kind of, well, we don't know, do we really need a drone? You might want to rethink the process and see the value of a drone. You may not have a huge sprawling urban area, but you don't need it. Look what the commissioner just told us about. They're basically a mixed bag of, commercial, residential, huge agricultural areas that they have to cover in their 4 municipalities in their coverage area. So I want to start off with this story, Jared, because this really is a hands-on, concrete example of the difference that a tick camera on a drone makes. And this is one of the things that, our good friend, mutual friend, Andy Starnes, always tries to push in his postings on social media, is the value of the tool. A lot of us, we have to we have to force a door or force a lid, the front lid on a car. And what's the first thing we grab? Usually we grab a Halligan, because that's a key tool for us. And we have it, it's hard in our hands and it's heavy and we use it. But a drone is not a toy. We're not talking about those little mini helicopters that came out 10 years ago, Yeah. This is a real tool that can truly benefit the fire service and EMS and law enforcement as well. And especially in communities that when if you get the drone responders a weekly email on Sundays, one of the things that they've done is they've had really agencies work together with purchasing and managing a drone. And they put a team together that's the drone team. So you're not pulling somebody off of active duty to, he's the guy who's got to run the drone. There's many aspects of it, and there is no doubt of its value. And if you read Firehouse Magazine, you read fire engineering, you read any of the trades, you listen, you get the social media and the email postings from them, you're going to see that the drone is now one of the most important tools that we can have in fire rescue, especially to help us. And listen, even if it's a working fire, if you have your drone up there and it gives your IC the ability to look down, have a better overhead view of your scene, and if you have the tick on it, you might be able to see exactly where the seat of the fire is before you have to send the first firefighter inside, if that drone is there and up and working. So there are many ways for you to use it, and there are many departments who are willing to share their knowledge. And that's the other thing. You're not alone in this effort. There are departments all over the country that have made great use of drones, really taken into the technology, and they are willing to share it to help other departments, whether you're fire, law enforcement, or EMS. And keep that in mind. And that's why this story was so important for us to start off with today, because it really, really underscores the value, and thank God was a human life saved.
Yeah, I wasn't there the day of that call. I was actually traveling out of town. So Alex, that I was speaking about earlier, he was the pilot that day. And, I was so excited to get his text message when, I'm not going to use his exact words because this is a family friendly show, but he was like, we found him. We were texting back and forth, and finally I was able to give him a call, and, we said it paid for itself. Fortunately, like I said, we had a grant to fund a portion of it. We had a private partnership to fund another portion of it. But really, the amount of money that drone is, whenever it is up flying, that's invested in by our department, it paid for itself that day.
Absolutely.
It's one life saved. But going forward, if departments are looking at it, the biggest thing is, how do you sell it? And that's what like I said, this wasn't my idea. This was Alex. He was the one that, hey, we should do this. He kept the ball rolling. He compiled information, had a very good argument on why we should purchase one. And besides that search and rescue aspect, our firefighters use it for pre-planning purposes as well. A lot of our large commercials, or a lot of our strip malls, or a lot of our big box stores, Google Images, Google Earth doesn't always have something that's updated.
Right.
So especially after large renovations, we're not able to get kind of that bird's eye view to include with our pre-plan through Google Images or Google Earth, where the drone allows us to do that. We haven't deployed it to a fire yet. It's not one of the first out pieces that we're going to take, of course, but
Sure.
if we get something like, a large commercial, and if the incident commander deems it's going to be effective to help mitigate the incident, then we'll try to get it out there. But we also have a large rail line that goes through our first due area. So every year you typically will get brush fires up and down there, and, just with trains coming through, dry brush on either side. So if your incident response area just for that call is now extending miles and miles and miles and miles. So, yes, the drone can be effective even for that, for an incident commander to take a look at and see what they have, relying on people on the ground to, this is what we have going on in this division or this division, but they can also get that bird's eye view. The other thing that we really like with it is that we've discussed it. It's not just a fire related drone, we call it. All right. To us, it's a public safety drone. So if one of our police departments needs it, we're going to go. If EMS needs it, we're going to go. The Army Corps of Engineer Rangers up at the marsh and the recreation area, if they need it, we're going to go. As long as we're able to. We look at this tool as, we don't really care about our municipal lines with our fire department. If somebody calls for us outside of our region, we're going to go there. Alex actually took the drone down to York County not too long ago. They had a missing 14-year-old girl. And Alex drove the hour and a half with the drone down to there to assist in the search for her. This was grant funded through the state. So guess what? State taxpayers from all over the Commonwealth paid for it. So
Right.
as long as it's something reasonable and we have the people and we're able to, we're going to send it out there because, again, municipal lines don't matter when it comes to public safety or what your patch is or what the side of your truck say. Let's just get out there and get the job done and get it taken care of in best interest of public safety.
That's great. That really is. And I hope that it's had a good, this is a good message for all of you out there who are thinking about this or considering it, because you can put the information together. There are people to help you do that. And you should be able to sell it. Maybe there will be a grant available to you. Maybe there's a local organization like the Probus Club or Kiwanis or somebody like that who'd be willing to help you as well. Never forget that you're a part of a community, and people look at you more than just firefighters. You're helpers. You're people who care in your community, and when people see that dedication, that means a lot to them. And I found out in my short time of only 8 years in 4 and 2 each department, that when you do show how much you care about the people in your district that you protect, boy, you get a lot of good stuff back from that. There's no better investment than just being nice to your people and taking care of them and letting them see you out there, because that pays you back in spades. There's no doubt about it. And this is a great story to do it. So much congratulations on a great save and a great use of new technology for it. And we hope it continues to be that perfect, not a perfect tool, but a great tool for Western Berks and every community that's using one. All right, so thank you for sharing that. I want to make sure we got that out, because as soon as I saw it, I texted you and I said we got to do that.
Yeah,
because
I'm glad that we did.
Yeah, it was a great story, and it just sometimes just like in the newscast, you have to do that personal interest story. Although it's about us and what we do and our equipment and stuff like that, when you make this kind of a rescue under these circumstances with this type of a victim, it's just a greater personal reward and satisfaction for the action you took and the people involved in the equipment you used to do so.
Yeah, I will just say, Steve, if this is truly a testament to the people at my department, excluding myself from this. This is just truly a testament to them because, this isn't just like you had stated earlier. It's not like a drone you just take out of the box or you buy on Amazon or you buy at Walmart and you send it up flying. All of our pilots have actually gone through a pilot prep class. They've taken the FAA Part 107 class,
Right.
Done a ton of training in-house. We've reached out to other fire departments that have very successful programs that have been around, got their ideas, invested some money into our people with it. But it's truly a testament to them because this is really outside of that box on what fire departments usually do. The fire service is always evolving from, back from when we just went to fires and it was, okay, now you're going to car accidents. Now you're going to hazmat. Now you're going to technical rescue. Now you're running, ALS. I think this is kind of like that next sort of like piece of technology and the next thing that, the fire service has coming up. So it's definitely a testament to the people here at Western Berks, my people, that, hey, they took this challenge and said, I'm going to do it. And, dedicated their own time to go through these classes, to get themselves that requisite knowledge, put in that time and effort flying it. So when it was time for it to be called, they were up there and able to use it effectively. It wasn't just like flying around in circles.
Sure. And that's great. All right, folks, we're going to take a little break here. And when we come back with Commissioner Renshaw, we're going to talk about his recent article in FIREHOUSE Magazine. And it's entitled When City Hall Calls. And if you haven't read it, you're going to be very interested in what the theme and the background of the story is, as I was when the commissioner told me that he was writing this article, and it came from his own, I guess, from your own situation when you moved up to become commissioner.
My own, my own failures and headaches and hitting the wall. Yep.
Okay. All right. So if you're watching the video, you won't see anything different. If you're listening to the audio, you know what's going to happen. We're going to take a couple of moments break, and there'll be a few good words for all of you. And then we'll be right back with my guest, Commissioner Jared Renshaw, right after these words. Please stand by. And welcome back to this episode of Five Alarm Task Force. My guest is my friend, Commissioner Jared Renshaw from the Western Berks Fire Department in Pennsylvania. And we were just talking about an important and yet very successful incident they had, and they used their drone with a tick on it. And if you didn't get to hear the first segment of the show, please go back to the beginning and listen, because it's very, very important for you to hear this. Now, we're getting to an article that the commissioner had published in FIREHOUSE Magazine recently, answering the call inside City Hall. And no, that doesn't mean that the tones went off and you were dispatched to City Hall for an EMS call or fire call. Does it, Commissioner?
No, it does not. No. I wish it was that easy.
So let's explain to our viewers and listeners just what the article was all about.
So the article is, it's all derived from my own personal experiences, and also kind of relying on some of my colleagues with some of their experiences as well, and kind of some of the lessons learned, and really what the whole premise is how to make yourself as a fire chief, more relevant, and keeping your department at the forefront when it comes to working with your elected officials, kind of ways that you can be successful in working with them. When you get to the point where you have 5 bugles, yes, you may be very well versed in your department's operations and strategies and tactics, but dealing with your elected officials, being inside a city hall is a completely different thing than being inside of the firehouse. And, that's one of those make or break kind of things
Sure.
for your career and for your department.
Well, we've seen this. I mean, both personally, we've seen it happen in our departments. We've read about the stories in the press and in social media and things like that. And to make that move when you start earning bugles is actually totally different than getting up to the captain as a line officer, because a whole new group of responsibilities fall upon your shoulders. And when you get that 5th bugle and you're the chief of the department or commissioner of the department, you're answering to a lot more voices than just the people the general public that you protect. because in every community, whether it's you're in a small township, you're in a regular town, you're in a city, big city, there are a lot of people you have to answer to when you command the fire service. And I think you shared a lot of these lessons in that article and how important it is, and yet how a good officer, a good chief or commissioner can guide themselves and stay between the lines, so to speak, and be successful in the job, both in the department and in the community as well.
Right. So it's that, one of the biggest things that you need to realize is that you're now the face of that department. And that's not just within the firehouse, it's, not just within City Hall, it's outside of the confines of both of those buildings. You are now the face of the agency. Like I said, it doesn't matter what size agency you're in. If you're doing a press release, you're the one writing it, or a news interview, you're the one, being interviewed. You are the face of that agency. So whether you're off duty at the grocery store and somebody sees you, they're going to know that you are, the fire chief or the fire commissioner. You got to be on your A game at all times. And that's especially true, like I said, inside of City Hall, what we've been talking about. You can't not engage inside of City Hall with your elected officials or your city manager or township manager and expect your department to be successful. With the article, the premise, a lot of it is just how to keep yourself relevant, how to make yourself successful, tips and tricks to, things that I've learned. And unfortunately, some things I've learned the hard way,
right?
On how to do that. And that all comes from, in my past, other places where I've worked, but more especially now where I am, with us covering 4 separate municipalities, I have 2 boroughs that each have 7 council members. I have 2 townships that each have 3 supervisors. And then I have a board of directors here at the fire department that I report to. We have our monthly meetings, just like any business agency, whatever, we have the same type of meetings with an agenda, and, we have, agenda items, we approve bills, we make motions, but I also have to attend those other meetings as well. So not only reporting to my board, I'm also answering to 20 other people besides my board of directors. A lot of places you may only have 7 council members or 5, where I'm kind of reporting to 20 different people. And with it being this, this regionalized department that we have, the boroughs don't want the same things as the townships. And guess what? The townships don't even want the same thing as the other township, or the borough doesn't want the same thing as the other borough. So it's a very, fine line, and that, you have to walk, and it's kind of that playing that little bit of a political game. It's more so than just, giving out directions and orders or sending out SOPs, SOGs on the, the operational side. Now you have to kind of play that political side. You have to kind of be that politician and work yourself in and integrate yourself into their management team.
It's interesting you just said that, because in my professional career, besides being a teacher, I also served as the administrator or executive director of a number of synagogues, which is basically the COO, the chief operating officer. And you have a board of directors you have to answer to, and a president of the congregation. And it's one of the things I try to do to make myself, in my effort to make myself more professional and more and serve the company, the organization better, was to keep myself apolitical. In other words, I didn't play into the politics of the synagogue. My concern was the overall welfare of all the congregants in the synagogue. And it's like walking a tightrope over that pit with all those spears pointing up, and you forgot your balance bar in the other room. And you have to make it across that tightrope, but it's not going to be an easy job. And sometimes you fall off, and sometimes you make it all the way through. But it's a balance of, especially with you answering. I had one board, it was something like 20 people on it, and the president of the congregation. But you're serving 4 different supervisory groups in your communities, and that's like juggling raw eggs with one hand. and it's got to be a challenge. But in your article, you do share what has worked for you and what your recommendations. They're not promises, because you can't make promises in a situation like this. You can only give ideas and thought to how to help somebody else. So why don't we talk about that a little bit, please?
Yeah. So, first and foremost, it's hard work. It's hard work, and you have to always have a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. Because it's not always going to work, unfortunately. Whatever you first start out with, that's not always going to be it. So the first thing that I figured out is, it's kind of quoted in the article, is, don't look at your city hall as the lion's den. We all know that's especially true during budget time,
right?
Because everybody's fighting for money, and there's usually a lot of tension at those meetings. There could be a lot of tensions between other department heads, that the police chief needs new police cars, or the public works needs new dump trucks, but man, you really need a new fire engine. So that's very typical of most municipalities, that that's when tensions are high. There's a lot of arguments going back and forth, or a lot of questions being asked. But so first off, it's hard work. You have to put in that time, you have to put in that effort. The other thing is, don't look at it as a lion's den. You have to look at City Hall or a municipal office, whatever it may be, is, there's people there that hopefully all have the same goal that you do as a fire chief, and that's public service.
Right.
You're all there to make your municipality a better place, no matter what your job is. Even if you're the person that takes sewer bill payments or water payments, you're doing customer service. That you want to be, you want to welcome people, have a smile on your face. But it's the same thing with any department that's inside a city hall. So first and foremost, you have to pre-plan. And, just like with the fire service, we're out pre-planning buildings, but you have to kind of pre-plan your elected officials. So you get promoted, or you get hired in, and you get your 5 bugles, and, start getting on social media. Fortunately, we have the ability to search the internet, have social media today. It makes life a lot easier. But start looking at what those elected officials have to say about the fire department. Go through their social media pages. A lot of municipalities will have, council member so-and-so, they have a page just for, their elected office. So start to see what they've said about the fire department in the past, or even just overall about the government. Then start to dive into the meeting minutes, especially during budget time. Whenever you have a budget workshop or Ways and Means Committee meetings, meeting minutes, see what they have said when the fire department has asked for stuff in the past, how they have voted,
Sure.
Who supports the fire department, who doesn't support the fire department, who wants to, who spends money on this, who doesn't spend money on this. A great example, where I worked before I came to Western Berks, I was out in California. And we had a 5-member council, 4 council members and a mayor and a city manager. So the fire chief and myself, he usually attended the council meetings, but I'd tag along a lot just to learn. And, he always empowered me to, attend the meetings, bring things up, do presentations. So, we had one council member, though, that was, always asking questions whenever we wanted to buy something on how long that item is going to last. So we could buy, say, a new portable radio, and he would always say, well, how long is this thing going to last, or how long is it going to last? Well, that's part of like that pre-plan. And we kind of figured him out and said, all right, well, next time we go and want to buy something and we bring it before council as an agenda item to get that motion, we need to throw in our staff report about, hey, it's going to last this long. Or, hey, we're making these additions to it, or buying a case for it, so it will prolong the life, because he didn't want to see us coming back and buying the same thing in a couple of years because we broke it or it didn't last.
Right.
So it's not the greatest example, but that's kind of your pre-planning side. You're trying to figure out how people work and what makes them tick. It's the same thing if you're a fire chief coming in from the outside to an organization, it's what your people are going to be doing about you. They're going to be calling people from your old department, or they're going to be searching you on social media, or they're going to Google your name, and they're going to be looking up your criminal history and or whatever, different websites are out there to look at you. It's that same type of thing. They're sizing you up. So as that fire chief wearing 5 bugles, you have to start sizing up and pre-planning your council, just see what makes them tick and see what, what's important to them, and, try to mesh yourself, in with that. And that may mean that if you have a 5-member council, that you're having to change how you act towards each of them. If they're 5 completely different people or with completely different political views or views on the city or on your municipality, you may have to change that completely. 5 different ways that you approach them.
So when you do your research and you have a feeling for, let's say, your first big appearance in front of them, how do you, I think one of the things I learned at our board is that when I made my presentations, I tried to look at some point with everyone in the eye. I figured that so that they felt that I was talking to them, not just making a presentation to a room of flesh. And I found that as I did that, that was more valuable. And I would get some good comments back at the end. Thank you for really addressing yourself to me about that question, because I really didn't get it at first, but as you explained it. And I think eye contact, although sometimes we're a little bit afraid of it, to look somebody right in the eye, when you're in that position at that high, you're expected as the chief or the commissioner to be able to speak to anybody. You don't always have to agree, but you have to be able to speak with anybody. And that goes really not just for a chief, but it should work for any line officer, any officer in the fire service. You really should be able to talk with anybody, from the senior person to the newest rookie or probie in the station. You have to be able to talk with them and make them feel comfortable with you. And I think that's what you're getting at. And I think once that commission gets to really feel who you are by you coming in knowledgeable, I think that goes a long way to get that first foot in.
Well, it's important, that you always say, you can't make a first impression twice.
Right.
But that's very important. So your first municipal meeting that you're attending, as that new chief, is likely the meeting where you're sworn in. You'll be raising your right hand and giving the oath of office. So,
right.
9 times out of 10, family will be present with you. You'll be in, probably a class A, and, but that first impression kind of starts before the meeting even begins. Get there a little early, get your family there. If you've done your pre-plan and who those, elected officials are, just go seek them out, go introduce yourself to them, introduce your family to them. Especially if you're coming in from the outside, you're hired in from the outside, and say you're moving there, you don't live in that area, you bring in your family and you're introducing them, that kind of shows your commitment at the start to that agency, that look, you're willing to uproot your children and your wife, and you're bringing them to this town, to work for that fire department. You get up, then at the meeting, you're given the oath of office, hopefully, either if it's a, department report, or if you're given some time, to speak, speak about some of your visions, speak about some of your goals. But the thing to remember is to be enthusiastic about it. Right. If you just get up there and, okay, well, we're going to do these great things and we're going to get an ISO class 1 and blah, 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 blah. You don't look enthusiastic about that job. And if you're sitting on think about if you're sitting on the other side of the table and, oh my God, we just hired this person and we're going to pay them $80,000 a year to be our fire chief, they don't really seem too excited about this job. So get up there, be enthusiastic. I have the problem, I talk with my hands, so my hands are always flying around when I talk. But be enthusiastic. I'm not saying get loud and scream at them, but, show that you're excited about working for that fire department, and show that you're excited about being there. And that needs to carry on throughout your career. Don't let that falter just after that first meeting. When you get to those meetings, be excited, be enthusiastic about your department. When you talk about your people, say we, don't say I. That just shows your commitment all the way down the line, not just the department at the top at the municipal level, but as it starts to filter down to your people, because there's nothing worse than, if one of your line officers comes up with a project and you go in front of council and you keep saying, I, well, it wasn't your idea. It was theirs. It was that line officer's idea. So, use that term we, or, make sure you give that credit where it's due. But yeah, be enthusiastic when you're speaking about your department. And that's not just at the municipal meetings, but that's, like I said, if you're at the grocery store and you run into that resident, use that time, I call it showtime, but, use that time to speak about your department, make that an educational session for them. They may not even know that you have X number of fire stations. They may live by one, but I only thought you guys had one. I didn't realize, or, I didn't know you had an ambulance, or I didn't know you had a water rescue team. Use that as that educational side of things, but be enthusiastic about it. That you like talking about your department. It shows that you care about your employer and you care about the people you're serving.
I've always felt, and I've said this numerous times on the show, that fire education does not just happen in 1 week in October.
Yep.
Fire education and the relationship between the fire service and the public is 24/7. And when firefighters go to the market to pick up the food for the lunch or dinner that day, they should have a couple of the brochures in their pockets. So if they meet a mom with a little kid, are you a firefighter? Yes, I am. Oh, wow, that must be pretty cool. And you have something to give them and give the parent. So it's a little bit of education, a little bit of PR at the same time. And that those 2 or 3 minutes or 5 minutes with that mom and his or dad and his or her child can make all the difference in the world of how they view their fire service.
Right. And you want to leave that lasting impression with them, especially if it's not on an emergency call. If you're at a scene at somebody's house, that's their worst day and you're there to make it better. And it could be something very minimal. It could be something serious, but whatever you did that day, that's going to leave that lasting impression. You running into somebody at the grocery store, you have to be on your A game and really have to step it up to leave that impression. We had our open house here at my department this past Saturday, and we had a great showing. Tons of people showed up. It was fantastic. It had a lot of good feedback. People commenting on our social media pages about, we had so much fun. My grandson had a blast. Thank you so much for doing this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you're kind of leaving that lasting impression, on somebody, but that's starting with you as the fire chief. Like I said, don't go into that meeting mumbling. You want to be excited. You want to have that passion for your department. You want to speak highly of it, highly of your people, and be enthusiastic and be motivated, because that reflects well on you, right, to show that you're very engaged.
Okay. So what's our next step when you're there at City Hall?
So, one of the things, like continuing on talking about the meetings, typically you're only given a short amount of time to speak.
Right.
That's how life goes. If you have agenda items, or, you're on there for the purchase of something, it's an agenda item, that the conversation may last longer, because now it's open it up to, public comment, or it's also open up to, questions from the council. That could last a while depending on what you want to purchase, and of course its cost. But usually we don't get a whole lot of time to speak. We'll be allowed a staff report or a staff activity report. So you just want to highlight a few things, but be enthusiastic about it, and give them something to read beforehand. If you go up there, unfortunately, people's attention span, and you're talking about something, you're going to lose them after 45 seconds. So always provide your elected officials with some type of activity reports. All right. And part of your pre-planning, part of kind of getting those expectations beforehand a little bit, what they want to see on that report. Do they want to see call statistics? Do they want to see mutual aid given and received? Do they want to see, property loss versus property saved? See what they want, and put that on there, but also make sure you give a section where you can highlight your staff activities, which is, hey, we had our open house, or, we put to people through drone pilot training. We did 5-inch testing. Just those little like kind of feel good things that shows what your department is doing outside of call responses. Because we all know that's what a lot of it revolves around. It
Sure.
revolves around that call response thing, especially in those departments where, the question about mutual aid given versus mutual aid received is always a hot topic item. I deal with it on a monthly basis with one of my municipalities that, well, how many times did you go to this municipality? Well, we may have went there this many times, but they came here this many times. So, whatever you have on that activity report, make sure you can answer the questions on it first. You don't want to put something on there that you don't know, but get it out to them beforehand. So it's included in the agenda. That way, the residents can also see it, so it's not like some hidden thing, you're being transparent, but get it out to them beforehand. That way, if they have some questions, they can get you those questions way before the meeting ever happens. And it gives you time to formulate an answer and to answer them. But
Right.
It also serves another purpose of, if I can't be there at the meeting and I have one of my deputy chiefs going in my place, well, we're still getting that message across. They're not just relying on me to give out information. We're having that same standard form and that same standard of what information we disseminate, because that's what our elected officials want to see.
Absolutely. And you shouldn't be afraid to also provide in that written advance explanation of a policy that may be being discussed.
Mm-hmm.
You might have a policy for that mutual aid and say, well, if we get this kind of an alarm, we have automatic mutual aid from these communities to back us up right away. We don't have to call them. They know they're dispatched right away, and let them know that, we always have extra help on these type of calls. Don't be afraid to share that with them, because that's the kind of knowledge that helps them see the fire service, that particular service, in a better light, and understand how they work, so that they don't say, well, how come it took so long to get that fire out? Didn't you have enough people?
Right. It's all about education. Like you
Right.
said, with educating somebody at the grocery store, it's the same type of thing. The job as the fire chief, like I said earlier, it becomes political. But on the other side of it, you're also becoming an advertising agent. You're advertising your fire. You're selling your fire department.
Exactly.
We don't make a product. We don't make something that everybody in the world wants to buy. Nobody wants the fire department at their house, because that means that something bad is going on. And, then there's people in the world that don't want the fire department because we cost a lot of money, apparently. Yes, the fire engine's $800,000 where a police car is only $50,000. So they see the price tag for us and, oh no, we're good. So do your best to try to get that info out there, and especially for what info they want, what info they want to see.
Right. And, when you stress the safety aspect of what the concept you're trying to sell, and how much it helps the community, you use all the positives of the item. And I think that, oh, wow, I didn't realize you could do that with that. That's really amazing. And, that's a way of changing, especially when you're talking about budget items, especially. Wow, that would be a great investment for the community, and that's what you need to do, is, like you said, educate them, and don't be afraid you can't get too technical, but if you can give them enough that they can understand the prospect that you're bringing across, you're going to be successful.
Yep. Yeah. You don't want to, like you just said, you don't want to use a lot of the big technical words, because, people aren't going to understand that.
Right.
And
it looks like you're bullying. You look like you're bullying.
Right. You're bullying, or you're even belittling or being condescending. I've had an issue with a solicitor in the past that he would throw out all these gigantic legal terms at me, and I'd just be like, dude, I don't know what you're talking about. You gotta bring it down. You gotta make it so a 5-year-old could read it. Yeah, you just want to kind of be basic on it. That way anybody that, not just your elected officials, but the public, they look at that reporter, they hear what you're talking about at the meeting. They know what you're talking about. They understand it.
Right. So you make your presentation at the meeting. What happens next?
Well, that's usually a monthly thing. You have your monthly meetings, but to kind of circle back around on the whole meeting side of things, and this is kind of like one of the next segments is, be available and be present. is big. Like I said, you're the face of the agency. All right. So if anything happens, they are going to look to you. So you could be on vacation, you could be traveling the Caribbean on a cruise ship, and if there's a fire, you will get phone calls, you will get emails, you will get text messages. All right. So figure out that way of being available and being present. A lot of cities or a lot of municipalities, maybe have some type of rule in place or an SOP or an SOG on how to make contact. Like, are you supposed to contact council members direct? Or are you supposed to go through the manager? There's a lot of that,
Right.
make sure you follow that. But if not, with your pre-planning and figuring stuff out and working on expectations with each other, figure out how to make those contacts, figure out how to be available and how to be present. So if there's a fire in a certain part of the city that council member has, is it all right for them to call you and ask questions? Or is it all right for them to show up at the scene, because we know what happens, to ask you questions about what went on? Figure all that out, beforehand.
Right.
But you have that system in place. So if you are on vacation, who do you contact next? Or if you are around, make those contacts. A lot of this has to do with mutual respect between the fire chief and the elected officials. And like we talked about, your first meeting when you're sworn in and being enthusiastic and even carrying on with the activity reports and giving them what they want to see, you're doing what they're asking. So it's kind of that same way with being available, being present of, you want to make sure that, you're meeting the expectations, but they're being respectful of you as well. That, all right, if you're off duty, not to contact, or we have this in place in the city, these steps, I should be following those, because you don't want it to become a personal benefit type of thing. You give an inch, they take a mile. You don't want a council member who feels so comfortable calling you that now they're calling you all the time because they saw a fire truck with lights on driving down the street.
Right.
Oh, where were they going? Well, I don't know. They're going on a call. Departments that are running thousands of calls a year, how's the fire chief going to know every call that they went on? That's impossible. But with also being available and present, that also plays back into the meetings. When you go to your monthly meeting, your municipal meeting, or if they have bi-monthly, whatever it is, get there early. Make yourself available for questions. And that's not just with your elected officials, that's with the public as well. And then stay after the meeting. I know it's time consuming. I know that significant others at home aren't happy about it because it's another night away from home and you're extending your time from that you're there, but it'll pay dividends. You're making yourself available for all of them, especially if after the meeting, if there was something that was discussed, you may have a resident that asks you a question afterwards. Or, hey, if you did have a fire in XYZ's, ward within the city, hey, maybe seek them out and be like, oh, hey, council member, we had a fire down the street from you. Or, hey, we did a PR event at the school in your coverage area. So, make yourself available, make yourself present. When you shift that over to the city hall side, away from the meeting side and away from the call side, it's the same type of thing. Don't be a stranger inside of city hall. There's other department heads there. There's other people that work there. If your office isn't in city hall, make sure you stop by a couple times a week. I'm not saying to loiter. I'm not saying to disrupt other employees, but get to learn who people are. Learn, outside of the meeting side, hey, maybe stop in the public works director's office or the police chief's office or the parks and rec director's office. Maybe just stop in, knock on the door. Hey, how are you? How you been? I saw what you guys did over the weekend. That was great. Or I saw you were working on this big project. Just kind of makes yourself relevant. If you just sit in your office and you don't come out from behind those walls, nobody's going to know who you are. And especially if you need a favor. And I'm not saying for personal gain, but I'm saying for your department. And I can give you a great story on that one, Steve. So I'm out in California, and our patrol, our Type 6, had just got new tires on it. Well, they were the wrong tires, and we'd already paid for them, all this other stuff. We couldn't take them back. Well, what are we going to do? I was like brand new. I'd only been there like 2 or 3 weeks. So I go down to the public works garage, and I talked to the head mechanic, and I'm like, hey, man, you guys need some tires. And he's like, well, actually, yeah, we're putting new tires on this truck. I said, well, what size? And he says, this size. I'm like, well, we just got some, but they're too big for our truck. Do you want them? He's like, yeah, we'll take them. So we were able to, just through, that little interaction, that meeting, I hadn't even met the guy before. I just went down there, knocked on the door. Hi, I'm, Jared Renshaw, battalion chief. I got this problem. And we were able to come to, this agreement where they took those tires and then they bought the other ones. Since we'd already paid for ours, we gave it to them.
Right.
They paid for theirs. We got the new one, we got the new ones. But it was that type of, that little, it's a very small example and it's something very minute, but that's just a really good example of how within city government, you could work together with other city departments to be successful. And that's outside of the emergency responses. That's outside of the PR events. This was about tires for a truck.
Right.
And,
right.
we were able to work it out where the fire department wasn't taking a hit money wise. They weren't taking a hit money wise, but it was a great outcome for everybody and everybody got what they needed. So, be present inside of City Hall. Like I said, don't loiter, don't cause disruptions, don't prevent people from doing their work because you don't want to get labeled as, well, all he does is hangs out here all day long and doesn't do anything else. But, that's that relationship building.
Right. Forge relationships.
That you really can't put a price on.
Exactly. A couple of years ago, we interviewed Chief Victor Conley from Irving, Texas. And it was right after they had a really bad incident on a roadway during an emergency they responded to. They had their brand new tiller truck out as the blocker, and a semi came barreling through, hit the tiller, and threw four of the firefighters about 75 yards. They were injured, but they all were able to get better and come back to duty. And we were talking about that, and Chief Conley said, what I did from that is I think it was Chief Conley who said it, that I went to our DPW and I said, do you have any of those big trucks, dump trucks that are maybe ready to go to scrap we thought, we might, that might be a way to create a blocker without spending tens of thousands of dollars or even more to use an engine company or a ladder company out there or a Quint out there. And that carried over in our, you were on the discussion we were on that night on the roundtable discussion.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about the fact that you don't have to necessarily risk an engine or any apparatus to be the blocker necessarily, because if you work within your community, you might be able to find a used piece of their apparatus that they don't need anymore, and they were going to get rid of it or try to sell it off cheap or something. And for a couple of $100 investment, that piece goes out when you have an emergency on a roadway, and that's your blocker vehicle. And that works if you forge those relationships that you were talking about.
Right. And something like that, and even like my tire conversation, you don't realize it, but that turns into a PR goldmine.
Absolutely.
Especially because I brought it up at the following council meeting. I brought that up under our staff report. My fire chief, said, yeah, sure. If you want to talk about that, I ran it through him first. And, we brought that up, and the council was actually very impressed with, we had a problem. We had an issue, with these tires, and, we just spent money on them. And, really we would have had to just, we would have taken a hit, but we were able to work within, our city government, one of our other city departments, and actually come up with a great resolution that both of us benefited. And then of course, people in the community, there's, 40 residents sitting there. They're all thrilled with it. They're like, oh, great. Our taxes don't have to go up because we got that, which,
bad tires. Right.
But but you can do it. I mean, I'm fortunate that it continues to this day where I am now, that, we have a great working relationship between PD and Public Works. And, those relationships are all forged, before that incident scene. So, you can't put a price on that, what they're able to do for you and how they're able to help you out. Even the most, you may not think it's a big deal, but it is.
It is.
It's a big deal for them, or, it's not a big deal for you, or maybe it's a big deal for them, and you're willing to help them out. And it like I said, it shows. It shows that, like I said, you're engaged, you're available, you're present. You've made those connections inside of City Hall before the time comes.
Right. And you know what? I'm going to just take a moment since we brought up about emergencies on active roadways, folks, we want to remind you that on Thursday night, December 9th at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, we're holding our last webinar of 2021 from Fire Alarm Task Force Corp. And it is entitled Situation Awareness when Responding to Emergencies on Active Roadways. We know that this year, over 30 first responders have been lost to distracted drivers going through our blockers and getting into an emergency scene. And that's too many. That's one too many, let alone 30. of our fellow first responders. So our guests are going to be Dr. and retired Chief Richard Gassaway of the Situational Awareness Show. It's going to be Deputy Chief Ron Tarrant from Grand Rapids, Michigan, who's been working with blockers and attenuators for over a decade. And we have Jack Sullivan, Director of Training for the Responder Safety Institute, and Todd Lease, who is the Assistant Director of Training for the Responder Safety Institute. And they'll be presenting that information of how to be situationally aware and keep yourself as safe as possible from the moment those tones ring out for that dispatch. And it doesn't matter if it's a 2-lane country road or it's a 12-lane superhighway. You always have to be aware, and we need to keep you safe. That's going to be on the 9th of December at 6:30. You can go to our website at the numeral 5-alarmtaskforcecorp.org. Right on the homepage is the information, the link, take you to Eventbrite to buy your tickets. And remember that the net proceeds of ticket sales goes to our foundation account, from which we offer financial assistance to our brothers and sisters and or their families in dire need. So it'll be a big help, and it will help keep you safe. So please join us on December 9th. Okay, Commissioner, back to you. We're back in City Hall.
Yeah. So the other thing I have for you, Steve, and this kind of actually goes to a previous article I had in Firehouse, but it all kind of plays in to each other. So, within the fire service, there's always that mantra of, teach your job to the person below you and learn the job of the person above you.
Right.
Well, once you get to the fire chief role, what job are you going to learn? All right. You could teach your job to whoever, whoever's beneath you, deputy chiefs, assistants, divisions, whatever it may be. But once you get up to the fire chief level, what job are you supposed to be learning? To me, that's very important. And I look at it as a horizontal and also a vertical axis when you talk about the job above you and then the job horizontally to you. So horizontally, you're looking at your fellow department heads. So we've talked about engaging them inside of City Hall and working with them in relationship building, before a call. But learning a little bit about what they do and how they operate, how their departments operate, will benefit you as the fire chief in the long run. I'm not saying to go out and become a heavy equipment operator for the public works or become a certified police officer. But as we discussed earlier, we talked about how tensions always get really high during budget season inside of City Hall. And of course, if you don't understand the police department's needs before that budget meeting, or the public works needs, or parks and rec, sewer, water, whoever it may be, that's why those tensions are high. Maybe you can say, oh, you know what, we can hold off on buying that other pickup truck. Yeah, you guys definitely need that police car more than we need that pickup truck, because it's better for the community. It's better for the citizens. It's for that better service overall on what we're doing, not just on the fire side. So when you learn the job above you, also learn that job of the peers and the colleagues next to you inside of city government. And that goes with the relationship building, but, learn their budgets, learn, some of their operating procedures or how they do things. It'll give you that better understanding, like I said, come budget time or operational time, any time of year. When you look at the vertical axis, that becomes your city manager, and then the city councilors above them. We talked all about the pre-plan stuff, and you learn about, what makes them tick as a council member, and that could also be the manager as well. But learn your manager's roles and responsibilities. You may not know what they do on a regular basis, and it's very easy to sit back as, say, a fire chief and criticize the city manager. Oh, can you believe they didn't do this, or they did this, or I've been emailing for days and he didn't get back to me, he or she didn't get back to me. So I think it's really important for us to try to look at that position above us and learn what they do and learn how that city manager operates and what makes them tick and what the responsibilities are of their job. And then going to that next level above, why the council does things the way that they do. Yes, we talked about pre-planning and what makes them tick and why they make decisions, but why are they following these certain steps? And, in Pennsylvania, we have the second class township code. We have the first class township code. We have third class city code. We have the borough code. We have the Sunshine Act. There's numerous, laws in place that municipalities have to follow. And as the fire chief, I have to know those. I have to know all of them, because that affects my department and, how we operate. When it gets to the administration side of things, and even, the budget funding side of things, I have to know what's in the township code regarding, financing for a fire department, or if we have to increase the millage rate, I know what our maximum level is at the borough side of things and what's in the borough code. I said it'd be easy for me to sit back and criticize and go, well, we need more money. Why can't you raise it this much? Well, because the borough code says that we can't. When you look at like the Sunshine Act here in PA, that's a lot of stuff in regards to open meetings, public meetings.
Same in Florida.
Right. You want to know how. That's why the meetings are run the way that they're run. Again, it's easy for me to go, well, why do you need all my reports at this time? The meeting isn't for 3 weeks. Well, because per the Sunshine Act, you have to have the meeting agenda published in a certain amount of time before the meeting starts for the public to review and have. So looking at, like I said, the vertical and horizontal axis with learning the job, not only above you, but across next to you with your peers and colleagues, is really, really important for that fire chief. Like I said, I've said earlier, it's hard work, not just inside the fire station or inside of your office. We're talking about operations strategies or tactics. This is hard work stuff that is going to keep you relevant as a fire chief and keep your department out there and engaged, and hopefully have you looking like rock stars in your municipality. Hopefully the residents are behind you, and hopefully your council or supervisors are behind you as well.
Right. Well, in your case, I mean, you gave the best evidence of that with how successful your open house was. I've been to, besides my two departments, I've been to dozens of open houses at fire departments, and some are okay, and some are great. And when you're, you got lots and lots of your citizens coming and visiting and going through the tables and picking up the giveaways and stuff like that, there's no better proof how engaged you are with the people you protect. And you can't buy that kind of devotion and support.
Well, and it's for us, our open house is, we extend it. And what I mean is, it's not just us. When I like talking about that horizontal axis, we had multiple police departments here that serviced our large coverage area. We had EMS, we had our local tow company. When I referenced Blue Marsh Lake earlier, we had the Army Corps of Engineers here because they're one of our partners. Again, that's that horizontal axis on who you're working with on a regular basis, that you're serving that community all the time. We bring them into our open house. We give them a spot to park their trucks or their cars. We give them a table inside the station to set up for all their handouts. And that's important to us because it's showing that collective working relationship amongst all those different groups. And like I said, we're all there to serve the public.
Right.
That's our number one mission, and our number one goal is public service. And even though we are different disciplines, we're different agencies, that's what we're there for. And that's that horizontal axis of learning them, meeting them, learning what they do, why they do it, how they operate, and that relationship building, before that incident occurs.
All right. We're not the only ones who takes care of Mrs. Smith.
Exactly. There's a lot. And that's, we even had one of our local tow truck companies. He has like this big rotator truck, with like a bunch of flashy lights, and he hangs an American flag off the boom. And, we even invited him, and that's one of those things that you wouldn't think, but there's still a public safety agency.
Oh, absolutely. We count them as first responders now.
They are still that public safety agency. They're coming out, opening roadways, getting vehicles out of the way, et cetera, et cetera. Even having them down there, like I said, it may not seem like a big deal, but we had tons of people that commented on, oh man, that was great. I think they like his truck more than the fire truck, but whatever. I'll take that.
Exactly. Because you still bought all this goodwill, and that's the most important thing. He's taking care of Mrs. Smith, making sure she has faith in us, and that us is the collective us. It's not just a fire service. It's not just law enforcement. It's everything we do as first responders. It's the other town agencies that service Mrs. Smith as well. We're all in a partnership to take care of Mrs. Smith. That's what it's all about.
And like I said, with this article, that's kind of what the, yes, the premise is my lessons learned. That is things that I learned or things that I tried and I failed that didn't work. And I had to change the way that I had to change my thought process and the way that I operated when it came to, working with elected officials. But it's what it all reverts back to.
Right.
Everything in there is about your department providing that service and providing it the best that you can and getting that support so you can provide that service. If you don't have that support at the council, your municipal level, the council level, how are you going to be successful? Because you're not.
Right.
It's impossible. You'll try to bring up things with policy changes or to implement things, and council isn't going to vote yes because they don't have the trust in you. And then come budget time, hey, we need to hire 3 more firefighters to meet XYZ standard. They're not going to give you the money because if you don't have that trust and that mutual respect, what good are you? That's really the time to realize as a fire chief that I've plateaued and it's time to move on because my agency can't move forward with me still in that position. So I don't want to see people get to that position. I don't want to see fire chiefs plateau. I don't want to plateau. I'm fortunate that I have so many good people in this fire department that keep me on my toes on a regular basis. I have one of my deputy chiefs. He's actually a volunteer deputy chief, but we text every day about different stuff, and he keeps me on my toes. If there's something that I forgot, man, he will call me out on it. But you know what? It's keeping me on my A game.
Right.
But
Right.
with all this, this isn't, unfortunately for a fire chief, no matter what. Yeah, there's all these different books out there that you could read, and I've read so many different books on leadership and pride and ownership from Salka and Lasky, and you talk about different officer books and taking officer classes, but there's not a one size fits all for anybody. And stuff that's in this article. Like, again, I think, I'm going to give that shameless plug to, hey, I Peter Matthews for allowing me to write this and present a class at Firehouse Expo and a couple months ago. It was great to be able to put all of this down and hopefully somebody reads it. Maybe it'll help them, or maybe it'll vindicate what they're already doing, but this isn't a one size fits all. And some people, I just hope that things in here that they may try to use or implement doesn't backfire on them. I really don't. This is all written with the best of intentions and through my collective thoughts and my lessons learned from some of my colleagues that we put this together to really, maybe it will help some people out, and help some people be successful as fire chiefs.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we've always stressed here, and even though my career was short, it was always important to me, was that a good firefighter is always willing to learn, and they're always willing to share. And that's what you're doing. You've learned lessons. You're sharing the results of those lessons. Some of them were great and some of them were tough lessons to do, but you're a better person for having gone through it. And that's what you're sharing. And, to be a successful firefighter, especially today, you cannot just go to your one school or one training class and say, okay, I'm done. I got it. I'm all set. You never will be all set in today's changing times. No matter where you live, where you serve, there is going to be change. Of course, the two things that firefighters like the worst, change and status quo. Right, exactly.
Well, and with the political arena, depending on how your election cycles go and depending on how long terms are, you could see major turnover and change in your municipal side every 2 years.
Right.
You could put in all this hard work and effort to really get council members or municipal elected officials to back you up. And then, oh my God, they lose an election and now you're starting over from scratch. You're having to go back through that process of building mutual respect and getting to know them and them getting to know you. I can't unfortunately name the name, but a municipality that maybe I serve now or maybe I served in the past, I can't say, they had somebody get elected. They never attended a meeting before. So they're literally coming in as an elected official and they never attended one of the municipal meetings. So how hard is the job of the chief or the commissioner then to try to educate? You're starting that's starting way before even scratch.
You're starting in kindergarten.
Starting from scratch,
Yeah.
it's way before that, because now you're dedicating so much time and work and effort to get them up to speed, only to have that person lose 2 years later. After you get comfortable with them, now all of a sudden they're out the door. So, with the fire service, like Steve, like you're saying about, we're always changing and evolving. That political arena, it could change like that.
Right.
And depending on, state laws, state rules, employment contracts, with new municipal regimes could come a brand new fire chief. And you could be doing the best job in the world as the fire chief. Your department could be one of the best, looked up to, emulated, imitated. But man, if somebody new comes in, new mayor comes in, you could be gone like that.
Right.
And it's no fault of your own. It's just, that's how it works.
It was the same thing in my business too. Same thing. New people get elected every 2 years, and all of a sudden somebody has a hair across the nose, and all of a sudden they don't like, to people that they don't like you. You never knew them before. You never did anything with them before, but all of a sudden they come in not liking you.
Yeah, and they want to come in, and I get it, is say a new mayor, new council, whatever, they want to build their own management team. They may not feel that you as the fire chief is not aligned with their visions and goals, and unfortunately a lot of times it does get political. You could Google it, you could read the stories, you could see what has happened, or that fire chief didn't donate to a campaign, or they didn't put the sign in their front yard, or they have maybe bashed that person in the past. That's where those personal agendas start to come out. And that's like one of the last things to, kind of talk about with the article is in the class that I do, which is very, a lot of stems from this article. Those personal agendas are going to be there. Mm-hmm. And, in smaller government, for those who are watching, if you work for like a big, county fire department or a large city department, they're there. It's magnified a lot more once you get to smaller agencies. But you see it. You see people who, like the person, well, I was tired of code enforcement getting called on me for having high grass, so I'm going to run for council and I'm going to tell them never to give me a, violation notice again. Or I've had, my son was a member of the fire company and got booted out. So guess what? I'm now going to run. That way I could show that fire company who's boss, or they arrested me, so I'm going to run for council. So now I could tell that, police chief what's up.
Right.
The personal agenda side is huge. I mean, we all know that. Right. It happens in the firehouse as well, but in the political arena, it happens. And it doesn't take long for you as a fire chief. If you're, like I said, on your A game, you're working hard, you're doing your homework, you could sit in 1 or 2 meetings and pick it out very quickly. Even after reviewing meeting minutes, you could figure that out very quickly.
Right. Right. Well, I think, I loved reading the article when you told me about when it came out. I actually read it twice. I read it on the electronic version, and then when I got the magazine in hand, and then as I normally do, I save up my magazines and I give them to my buddy who I met when he was 18 years old at the fire department in North Carolina. We got voted in. He was an 18-year-old kid, and he's still my best friend 40 something years later. So when he comes down from North Central Florida, I always hand off my he's with a sheriff's office now as the chief pilot, but I always hand off the Firehouse magazines to him, and he enjoys reading them. And I told him, I said, look at this article and see if it reminds you of any of the stuff that went on in North Carolina. And it was such a spot on article. And for me, I guess it was because I also had a similar role in the public sector, in the nonprofit sector. But it was everything you're saying, it was absolutely true, because I still had to answer to a board and a president. And you come in new and you don't know any of these people. So you're initially invited to meet them and things like that. And then all of a sudden it gets more professional when you start going to the meetings to present your report. and the details and stuff like that. And this, that, another thing. And so it really is spot on for leadership. It's not just if you're the chief, if you're a leader in your community. This is a great article to be aware of, because it doesn't just talk about a municipality. It talks about life, working with other people. It really talks about what you have to look at today to be a good leader.
I appreciate that. So
it means a great deal. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to the next one. You gave me a hint that it's coming out. So there'll be another one coming out in Firehouse in not too distant future. Jared, I can't thank you enough for your time. I know how busy it is up there, and as we said at the beginning, it took a while to put our schedules together, but I'm thrilled that we did. The article was great, and the fact that we had breaking news with the drone was just frosting on the cake. I think it shows what a terrific department Western Berks is, the leadership you're offering them, your dedication to the task, their dedication, all the members of the 4 municipalities who work and give those who are career, those who are volunteer, give of themselves every day to help to protect and serve the
great people, great department.
That's great. That's what we love to hear. That's always the best. All right, folks, that's going to wrap it up for this video cast. If you're watching the video, this will be the end of the video. But if you're listening to the audio, we'll be right back right after these words. But first, my sincere thanks to Commissioner Jared Renshaw for being with us today and talking about both the drone call and the rescue, and when answering that call inside City Hall, and what it takes to be a good leader, not just a good fire chief, but a good leader. So we'll be right back right after these words. Please stay tuned.